Hey everyone, this is Pete. Welcome back to Atari A to Z, a series of short playthroughs of Atari 8-bit games, some which I grew up with and some which are new to me. Today is one of the latter. Today we're looking at a game called Illinois Smith. This was a 1987 release by a group called Magnum Opus Software. I say group, it was actually a solo developer called Greg Knauss. Now, Knauss previously made a number of games for both Antic and Analog magazine in the United States, but Illinois Smith was an experiment for him. It was an experiment with a model he called begware. So the game was technically free, public domain, so you could freely distribute it. But what Knauss encouraged people to do was to play through the game as much as they wanted to, and then rate it between 1 and 10, and then send him the number of dollars that corresponded to the rating they gave it. And he called it begware because there's some fairly undignified begging on the title screen for it, but it's all done very tongue-in-cheek. It's an interesting model, really. It's not really something I've sort of seen before. I mean, we've seen sort of pay what you want things in more modern stuff, but sort of a specific guideline as to how much you might want to pay for it, that's something I've not seen before, and this was an interesting idea. It's a fairly simple game, but it's quite a fun game as well. And Illinois Smith is something that Greg Knauss would come back to in some of his later games as well. So it's sort of vaguely interesting from a historical perspective on that, even though it's basically a historical footnote at best. But anyway, let's go play Illinois Smith.
Okay, here we are with Illinois Smith and the Temple of Really Confusing Underground Mazes, begware by Greg Knauss. Press start to begin. Please distribute this. It's free. Now, before we start, I do just want to scroll through this select text, which is the instructions and the story for the game, and a few other bits and pieces as well. So, it was 2 weeks ago when Ichabod told you of his discovery. He had found it. He had actually found the temple of the great god Tned. It was pure genius on Ichabod's part, too. Who else would have thought to look for an ancient Peruvian temple in Akron, Ohio? You stepped off the plane and realised what a brilliant hiding place it was, though. Nobody would ever think to look for it in so desolate a place. You entered the temple as quickly as you could after arriving in Akron. There don't seem to be any traps, you thought, after making a cursory search of the first level. But the air smells funny. Your keen adventurous sense picked it up quickly. Gas. You estimated that you could survive for about 3 minutes on each level before passing out. The instructions! I won't read it, so but yeah, basically, so this is a maze game where you collect treasures. So move the little man around. This is such a sort of 80s thing in gaming, is describing the character in a game as a little man. And you move the little man around the screen and that sort of thing. You're not moving Illinois Smith around the screen, you're moving the little man. If you wanted to pick up a treasure, stand on top of it and press the button. The level and type of treasure determining its value. To go down to another level of maze, blah, 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 blah. So you have 3 minutes to finish each level. Right, here's the interesting bit. Begware. Begware is a radical new concept in public domain software. Beyond freeware, beyond shareware, begware actually involves me begging you for a donation. Here's how it works. First, you play the game. Give it a full run through. Decide if you'd like to keep it. Then rate it on a scale from 1 to 10. If you think it's garbage, don't send me anything. If not, mail me the number of dollars equal to the rating you gave it. And there's his address, which please don't send stuff there because he might not live there anymore. And now the begware difference. Please, oh please, please, I spent a month and a half on this stupid thing. Please, look, I have my pride, but I'm pretty desperate. Oh, please, 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 oh please, what's a buck or two, or 5 or 6, please, drool, slobber. Yeah, so that's how begware works. We're sort of seeing a bit of a return to that today in some cases, aren't we? So, yeah, anyway, let's play the game. So, here we go. Here is our intrepid hero. And he wanders around this very smoothly scrolling maze, picking up treasures. And so your aim is to collect as many treasures as you can within 3 minutes and escape the level before time expires. So that's the exit over there. So we have plenty of time for the minute. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to this game, but I mean, it's very competently executed. Which is why I kind of like it. I mean, I enjoy maze games anyway, but this is well implemented. I mean, I don't know how well it comes through on the video, but certainly the scrolling in this is probably its most impressive thing. The Atari 8-bit was not particularly known for its ability to do fancy scrolling. There was one direction it could do, and then the other one you had to do really complicated machine code routines to make it work, if I remember correctly. I think it could do... No, I can't remember which way around it was. But like I say, it could either do horizontal or vertical scrolling really well. But to get the other one working, required fairly extensive poking around in memory and making use of machine code routines. And it was sort of regarded as a real mark of something worthy of respect if you could get something on the Atari scrolling smoothly. Or fine scrolling, as it was sometimes called. I remember reading, I think it was Page 6 magazine. And one issue, they had a type-in demonstration program that was just designed to showcase the fine scrolling technique. And as with most things in those magazines at the time, it suggested that you might want to incorporate these routines into your own programs. And I mean, yes, that was a possibility. But that kind of depended on you understanding what that routine was doing in the first place. And if you weren't super familiar with how machine code worked, then it was quite tricky to just lift out the appropriate subroutines and put them in your own program. I mean, not impossible. Not impossible. Because sort of a big part of learning to program in this era of computing was taking bits of other people's programs, figuring out how they work, and experimenting. Because every home computer of the period came with BASIC, it meant that you could just experiment with those things. Because when you're using BASIC, although you can sort of poke things into various memory locations and so on, there is no way of breaking your computer by using it. You can poke something into a memory location that doesn't make sense, of course, and that might crash the computer, but turn it off, turn it back on again, and you're good as new. And so that sort of safety net of knowing that you can play around with programming, you can play around with picking out pieces of code from other people's programs or that have been published in magazines and so on, that gave a lot of people confidence to experiment. And in turn, developing that confidence led to a lot of people becoming commercial programmers in their own right. The 8-bit era is often described as the era of the bedroom programmer. And it's absolutely the case. So many developers in those years, including a lot who are still working in the industry today, for that matter. So many developers started off with just an Atari or a Spectrum or a Commodore 64, sitting at home in their bedroom, tapping things into BASIC just to see what would happen. And sometimes you got cool results. Sometimes you got not so cool results. I mean, as I say, as as a game, this isn't the most amazing thing you'll ever play on the Atari 8-bit. It's a simple, straightforward maze game without a lot to it. But it's technically proficient. It's a good proof of concept. And Greg Knauss, who put it together, chances are he made use of some of the things he learned or refined during the making of this game when making some other stuff. We're going to run out of time. I don't know where the exit is. Game over. Score 0. Doesn't seem very fair. Okay. Let's have one more go at that. Not sure if your scoring system works correctly, Mr. Knauss. Oh, that's interesting. We seem to have picked up where we left off. This is actually the second week in a row we've had a game that does that. So if you watched last week's video on Hijack, you will recall that when you got a game over in that and you restarted the game using the fire button, you simply continued where you left off. Or you could start the game over from the beginning if you wanted to as well. And I mentioned then that it was quite unusual to have that at the time because it was the continue system was still something that arcade games were just starting to define. I mean, this game was a lot later than Hijack, so this was 1987. So by that point, arcade games had established the conventions of being able to add credits and continue and that sort of thing. But it's still fairly unusual to see that in a game that isn't an arcade port. But yeah. The question is, how do you actually get a score in this game? Because I thought it was just through collecting all the gold. Or collecting as much gold as you could and then escaping. Maybe you only get a score if you make it through all the levels. That's a possibility. Or maybe you just don't get a score if... Well, that would be effectively the same thing, wouldn't it? You don't get a score if you die. So on to the third level, I guess. You see we're getting different types of treasure on each level now. And the different types of treasure are worth a differing amount of points. And their base value is multiplied by the level that you're on as well. So those swords are worth just 1 gold on the first level, but they're worth 3 now because we're on the third level. And so in that way there's a sort of sense of escalating reward as you progress through the game. It's not getting especially more perilous or anything like that. But I think the density of the treasure is a bit greater, so it's kind of tempting you a bit more. But there's only so much you can do with single character width mazes like this. And so it doesn't feel it's actually getting any harder. It's just sort of providing you with more opportunities to tempt yourself to go and grab treasures rather than hunt for the exit, which we haven't seen yet. We've got 90 seconds left. One slightly interesting wrinkle about this game is that in order to pick up the treasure, you've actually got to stop over it and press the fire button. Which means that if you're wandering around grabbing treasure, you're going more slowly than you'd be going if you were just walking, looking for the exit. And so after a certain point, you kind of have to make a decision and think, right, there's a minute left. I haven't found the exit. I probably should. Otherwise, I'm going to die. Oh, there it is. Alright, so that means we've now got time to grab all these goodies here before time expires. Especially the diamonds. And then head down to the next level. Okay, so we've got sort of chalice type things this time around. Those are worth 16 gold each. So presumably they have a base value of 4. Again, we don't want to get too hung up in searching for treasure that we don't find the exit, so let's keep looking. So, I mean, as you can see, there's nothing especially remarkable about this game, but it's a public domain game. There have always been certain expectations about free software, or begware if you want to be cute about it. Like, I know that whenever I picked up a disc from the page 6 public domain library or typed in something out of a magazine, I wasn't expecting something that was commercial quality. I mean, I quite reasonably expected something that was functional and did what it was supposed to, but I wasn't expecting, when it came to a game, I wasn't expecting something with massive amounts of depth or anything like that. I was just expecting something that would be competent in execution and perhaps teach me something about programming if it was written in BASIC. If it was written in machine code, then it was just a challenge to my typing skills. Because if you've never seen a type-in machine code listing, it tends to be like 4 or 5 pages of very tiny print data statements that are all written in hexadecimal. So it's like 3 lines at a time of pairs of numbers going from 0 to F. And if you typed all that in... Oh, there's the exit. Can I get there in time? Yes. Yeah, if you typed all that in and saved it to a disk or cassette and then ran the thing that created an executable file from it, yeah, you'd have a high-speed machine code game. Okay. Got some snakes this time. Got over 1,000 gold now. I'm not sure, but I think the mazes are randomly generated in this as well. Because when I was sort of gathering material for this series of Atari A to Z, I sort of tried a few games out just to see if they were worth looking at. I mean, your mileage may vary as to whether or not you think they're worth looking at, but I thought they were interesting anyway. But yeah, I tried this as part of that process, and I'm pretty sure that the early mazes in particular were laid out differently from what we had in this playthrough. But I don't know. That's hard to check without doing some careful analysis, and that's not what we're here for right now. But anyway, this is another one of those games that's sort of fun for a few minutes at a time. I think it would have probably been better if it had stuck to like a single level of maze and just made it a bit more arcade style. So if it set itself up in such a way that you just have 3 minutes and that's all you get, there's no more levels, you just try and score as many points as you can in 3 minutes. And that's the game. I think that might have worked a bit more effectively rather than trying to drag it out over the long term as we've got here. But, well, we've started now. So we may as well at least try and finish. No sign of the exit. Oh, there it is. Right, how much more? Or does it just keep going? We've got the little men from the Philips G7000 video pack computer there. They're worth a lot of gold. I guess when you think about it, it's kind of impressive to generate a maze that you can get through. One of the page 6 public domain discs that I had when we were young, in fact I've still got it somewhere, actually had a game, I think it was just called Maze, where at the start of the game you could watch it drawing the maze, and that was a way of covering up the fact that the game was written in BASIC and so it ran quite slowly. But by making that maze generation process into something that was interesting to watch, and it played sounds and it flashed colours and you sort of saw it drawing all the different bits of the maze and the pathways and working out when there were, whether or not there was a suitable route to be able to get through. Yeah, I always found that game quite interesting to watch. Oh dear. We seem to be in a bit of a dead-end situation. And again, no sign of the exit. I'm not confident we're going to finish this level. Probably for the best. Alright, there's the exit. But how do we get to it? And we go around here. That was less complicated than I thought it was going to be. Does this game go on forever? I think it might. There's the exit. That's a good start, at least. I'm just going to make a beeline for that exit. See if there is an end to this game. say make a beeline. Looks like we're going to have to go the most roundabout route possible. There must be an end to it. No, because he said in his begware thing that you should play it all the way through. I assume that means you can finish it. Right, onward. Silence, phone. Oh god. Still more. Yeah, this game is starting to wear out its welcome a bit at this point. Like I say, I'm pretty convinced that this would have been a more enjoyable game if it had deliberately limited itself in some way. So if it had deliberately made itself into a score attack game where you just have a set period of time to score as much as you possibly can. But like I say, there's nothing sort of fundamentally wrong with this. And technically, it's pretty good. I mean, I know we're getting the occasional judder in the scrolling, but for the most part, that scrolling's very smooth. The main character's actually got a bit of personality to him. And there's a sense that the whole thing's been designed with a bit of care and attention put into it. There's the exit. Creeping ever onwards towards inevitable death. Except I can't get to it. Curses! Well, these infernal corridors never release me from this torment. Alright, if we go up here, there it is. Let me out, please. Oh, there's more. This one doesn't have a floor, though. Which kind of suggests to me that this might be the last floor, or maybe that's just me being wishful thinking. Being wishful thinking. You know what I mean. But we'll see, I guess. Assuming you can actually find the way out. Not that way. It would have been nice, like, if they changed the colour of the maze on each level. I mean, it's nice to have the different floor textures. That was cool. But, like, changing the colour of the walls would be nice as well. But, well, doesn't really matter. It is what it is. Oh no, that's a dead end. Well, this is no good at all. So, where the hell do we go from here then? So it's not that way. Is it this way? Or is it this way? I don't remember coming down here. Hopefully it's this way. Not many treasures on this floor. Which again leads me to believe that this might be some sort of grand finale. Fairly weak grand finale. I'll give you that, but a finale nonetheless, where your sole aim is to escape the eternal torment of being locked in pink mazes. It looks like there's like one of each treasure. Wonder if that means you need to get them all. Nope, not that way. Less than a minute. I love K. Okay. I don't think we're going to survive this. After all our intrepid efforts, it seems they will be all for naught. As Illinois Smith perishes by asphyxiation. In this dreadful tomb, from which there is seemingly no escape. Well, that's that. Game over. Score 0. Yeah, things I'd do differently in that game, but, you know, as I say, it is what it is. And what it is something I'd maybe send him $1 or $2 for. As I say, this... Maybe there are a few things wrong with it, but it's not bad. There are things you can praise about that game. But yeah, it's too long. And it would be nice to have a score, even if you failed. But anyway, that is Illinois Smith. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help out the channel by leaving a like or a comment and subscribing. New episodes of Atari A to Z are on Tuesdays and Atari ST A to Z on Thursdays. Check out atariatoz.wordpress.com for a full archive. Do please also check out my other projects moegamer.net, where I explore Japanese and Japanese-inspired games from yesterday and today, and videopackgames.wordpress.com, which aims to catalogue the small but well-formed library of the Philips G7000 Videopack computer, also known as the Magnavox Odyssey 2. You can also support my work on Patreon or buy me a coffee. You can find links to do both down in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.